Welcome back after I think a week and a half hiatus, guys. I'm very sorry about that. Just work has been a little bit crazy. I've been doing a lot of 11-12 hour shifts. Generally I don't do that 5 days a week, but it's been 5 to 6 days a week for that. So and on top of that, I've been having issues with my hand again. So writing a crap ton of notes is absolute hell for me. Not gonna lie, I've been a little bit procrastinating on that just because I don't really enjoy writing when my hand is like this. So but yeah, anyways, today we're gonna be looking at Jarrod's team. Jarrod, I scored his team a 36.5. Now you may be wondering, how do you score a team with Mega Mawile 36.5? Well, I'm gonna break it down for you guys, and obviously you can see that it's broken down in those 5 categories. But yeah, so Jarrod drafted Mega Mawile, Dragonite, Infernape, Swampert, Porygon 2, Volcarona, Jolteon, Crawdon, and Ferrothorn. So the first thing that you notice right away is this team, literally, it wants to set up an attack. I mean, it just screams it, right? Every Pokemon basically has setups, so in some manner. But starting with the offense, I scored an 8.5. Now, his offense is good. Like, it was one of those ones where it's like, man, I want to score this a 10 because this you have Mega Mawile, you have Dragonite, you have Volcarona, but the issue is like this team is really gonna suffer from threats that are faster and can OHKO these mons or do big damage, right? And put them in a position to just be revenge killed the next turn. So like Mega Mawile's not that fast. Dragonite really only has 284 speed. Volcarona's 328, but I mean that's not that fast. And on top of that, you got Dragonite and Volcarona who really want to run heavy duty boots. Running Sash is just it's not as viable as it used to be. Especially with the introduction of heavy duty boots and rocks generally being kind of important in draft, although I haven't seen it used too much in the battle room side of things, although I know it's very important the other place that I play. So but yeah, so it's an 8.5. This team really wants Mega Mawile to be the star here, although Dragonite and Volcarona are really they're probably a little bit easier to get going, I'd say, since they set up once and all they do is click buttons after that. Mawile's kind of now Mawile is not weak to rocks, so like you're probably like he's like, well, how's Dragonite and Volcarona easier? Well, the thing with Dragonite and Volcarona that's easier is like I think they just have easier times coming in. I don't know what it is, but I feel like from what I've watched, it seems like Dragonite and Volcarona just have better opportunities to get in. I don't know if that's because the way it's being utilized or not. I haven't played with Mega Mawile myself, so from its stats, it should be pretty easy to get in, especially with Intimidate, not being weak to rocks, being a Steel Fairy. It should be fairly easy to get in, especially when you got Teleport support from the best Teleport Trick Roomer, really. You Trick Room, you Teleport, you go into Mega Mawile, you did the game. Really, that's what it should be. So, but yeah, Mega Mawile, basically it's going to be Swords Dance 3 attacks. Those 3 attacks are usually going to be Play Rough, Sucker Punch, and Knock Off. You're going to have some combination of coverage in one of those slots, sometimes being Ice Punch, Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, Rock Slide, or Brick Break, right? And then for its like utility options, which I don't think is too bad, but generally I would just run the Swords Dance and 3 attacks. Mawile does have Stealth Rock, Taunt, and Toxic, so if there's like a really strong threat, defensive option against Mawile, Toxic might be an option. But generally Mawile has such high attack, it's still gonna do an enormous amount of chip damage, so and then you got Dragonite here. Dragonite, multi-skill, you guys know the deal with Dragonite. But the thing that makes Dragonite really good in draft here, that I think is important to note, is that it can be a really strong physical, special, or mixed set. It has just great coverage on both sides. On the physical side, you have Dragon Dance, Curse, Brick Break, Dragon Tail, or Dragon Claw. So this is something that I want to mention. I generally think that Dragon Tail is just better than Dragon Claw if you're going to run a dragon move. Just because, yes, I know it's got negative priority, but the thing is like, with Dragonite, you're probably going to want to click dual wing beat over a dragon move. Just because if a team has a fairy, you're probably not going to want to click a dragon move. Now, if a team doesn't have fairy, you just run outrage and you just outrage. So I really think that's something people should really be looking for in this draft, because there isn't a lot of people that drafted fairies. Yeah. Anyways, side note, I think Dragon Tail is better than Dragon Claw, just because you know, having that opportunity to phase Pokemon out is just strong. Especially if somebody catches you off guard with a setup or something like that, you can always send it in a Dragon Tail. But then you have EQ, you have Extreme Speed, which is awesome, that +2 priority. Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Iron Head, Rock Slide. I think I missed Thunder Punch, and I'm pretty sure it had Thunder Punch. And then of course Dual Wing Beat, like I mentioned, being its new move in this gen, which really helped it out, because Z-Fly was like, you know, really good for it. But you know, now having Dual Wing Beat, you don't have to, you know, basically have a useless move slot after you use your Z move, right? But on the special side, you have Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Surf, T-Bolt. So one thing that I think is important to note for this team in general, and most teams that have these small drafts, small offensive drafts, is you gotta be tricky. You gotta be, you know, Norman's team and Norman's games are great examples. He's actually utilized his team's movesets really well in mixing it up, and even then it still might not be enough, just because it's so easy to prep for a smaller team. You generally know what's going to be brought, but yeah, you want to be tricky. You want to utilize all of their moves as best you can, right? You know, maybe you know, having 4 setup Pokemon in a match might not be the best thing. You could have, you know, Dragonite as a special wall breaker, or you know, Infernape as a special wall breaker, something like that, right? Dragonite also has fantastic defensive options and utility options, which I'll get into in the defensive side here. But on the list third here, we have Infernape. Now, Infernape was pretty high on our tier list, and I agree with why it's so high. It's special or physical, it's fast, it has Stealth Rocks, it has U-Turn, it has priority in the physical and special side. It's not weak to rocks, which is awesome. So yeah, Infernape on the physical side, having Bulk Up or Swords Dance, Close Combat, Earthquake, Mach Punch, Flare Blitz, Gunk Shot, Rock Slide, U-Turn, just phenomenal coverage. And on the special side, you have Calm Mind or Nasty Plot, which is absolutely wild. And then you have Fire Blast or Flamethrower, Grass Knot, Vacuum Wave, and then of course Focus Blast, which nobody likes to click, right? And then of course it's defensive utility options I'll get into on the other side. And I wrote down Workup as an option if you're running a mix set, because, you know, if you wanted, it could be an option, just because mix set with Infernape is actually really good. So, you know, running let's see, yeah, Close Combat, Fire Blast, something like that, right? And then Gunk Shot and U-Turn or something, right? So, but that made, so this is one thing about this team that I think is really good. And it was this team kind of does this particular part a little bit better than I'd say Jeremy's team, who's very similar to this. Is he can be more specially oriented if he needs to be. Jeremy's team can do that as well, don't get me wrong, and really well. But I think Jarrod has a couple of really good options to do that I think he should utilize, being Infernape and Dragonite here. So, and then I'm gonna mention Swampert, who can do the exact same thing coming up here, right? So then you have Swampert here, who again, so this is 3 Pokemon in a row that can be run physical or special, okay? So on the physical side, you have Bulk Up, Curse, Earthquake, Body Press, Darkest Lariat, Ice Punch, Liquidation, and Rock Slide. And then on the special side, you have Earth Power, Surf, Ice Beam, Focus Blast, and Sludge Wave. So, and I forgot to mention Flip Turn, which just made this Pokemon phenomenal. Easily OU with Flip Turn, especially Mega Swampert. Oh. But yeah, so another Pokemon that can go physical or special, and you know it's not a big deal. Sure, Swampert's attack is 110 and its special is 90. That's by no means bad. I mean, throw specs on that, that's no problem. In draft, you can pull those things off. I mean, you can pull those things off on ladder too. I mean, but you're gonna run into things like that, right? But yeah, you know, being able to do that on a team that's small is really important, and the reason that is because a lot of people are just going to be expecting their standard stuff. You know, so when you throw in curveballs like this and you run special stuff, it can really throw a wrench in people's game plans, and really help you just kind of squeak through with that win, or get an opportunity with somebody like Mega Mawa or Porygon to, you know, teleport Shuriken, whatever the case, right? But next up here is Volcarona, another Pokemon that I think is just, so I said this before on somebody else's draft, high on the tier list, but for some reason I feel like it's always underrated, underutilized. Just an absolute monster. The only thing that I will mention is there is Pokemon much lower in the tiers that cost way less, that can do kind of the same thing. Obviously not have the same stab moves, but can do the same thing and cost way less, and then give your team a little bit more variety. But anyways, Volcarona having Quiver Dance, Flamethrower, Bug Buzz, Psychic, Giga Drain, and I will mention U-Turn because I think that is a on a team or on an attacking set that you're not setting up on. I think U-Turn is a viable option. Because you can run Flamethrower, Bug Buzz, and then your coverage, and then U-Turn, right? With your heavy-duty boots, that's totally viable. So, with that coverage, I mean, Volcarona covers basically any switch-in, especially since Hidden Power is available in this draft as well. It's pretty hard to deal with this Pokemon. You really got to attack it when it comes out and face it right off the bat. Because you let it set up once, it kind of runs over your team, especially if it's got Giga Drain or Roost. That's a defensive setup set. You know, like I was mentioning, in Steven's team right before this, you know, defensive Talonflame was an absolute monster when Gale Wings was a thing. And that same goes for Volcarona. Defensive Volcarona with Flame Body and Quiver Dance is an absolute monster. It's really, really hard to break through that if you're not prepared for it, right? So that's something that people should be looking at. And then second to last year, well, I will mention Ferrothorn for some offensive options, but not many. But as second to last for our like offensive Pokemon is Jolteon. Now this is a Pokemon that I really, really recommend just attacking with, throwing a specs on it and just attacking. It is so frail in the HP pool and then defensive pool. It really just can't take too much attacks. If it's got any chip on it, it just doesn't like to be attacked. That Volt Switch specs is a lot of good chip. That amount of chip, unless it's of course ground or immune because of the Volt Absorb or Lightning Rod or whatever, that amount of chip I guarantee will win you games with you know, Mega Mawile and Dragonite being able to break through teams because of that chip. Very important to just, you know, utilize Jolteon early, get a lot of the chip that you can. You know, you got Jolteon and Swampert, you got Jolteon and Infernape and Swampert to go between, right? You know, Jolteon, Ferrothorn. You got all these things that can, you know, accumulate this chip for Mega Mawile, Dragonite, and Volcarona. You know, utilize it, right? Jolteon being 394 speed, it's free Volt Switch all day longs. And then it's defensive and utility options. I will mention defensives. And then we have Groudon here. So Groudon very overshadowed by the top end of this team. A very strong Pokemon. Just very, very overshadowed by Mega Mawile, Dragonite, Corona. You know, even Infernape to some extent because of its versatility. Groudon adaptability. You basically run Choice Band, Life Orb, you Swords Dance, Close Combat, Crab Hammer, Knockoff, Aqua Jet, Rock Slide. That's just, you know, you could run Switcheroo, which I think is a viable option in draft, but generally you want to just attack with this thing. It is an absolute monster of a wall breaker. So Just really great coverage in fighting, dark, and water. And then to top it all off, it has Aqua Jet, so you could even use it as a clean, right? You know, that's actually a really interesting option. You could actually use adaptability, Groudon, Choice Band as a cleaner, and send out Mega Mawile, Dragonite, Volcarona early if that's something, or, you know, whoever you bring in them at. That's something that you could potentially do if the opponent doesn't have a good water resist. You know, that's an easy cleanup for you, right? And then last here, we're going to have Ferrothorn, Iron Defense, Body Press, always a threat. You guys always prepare for that. Easily sweep through teams, especially if you don't have a Ghost type. And for all of you, there isn't a lot of Ghost types in this draft, so I'm surprised this isn't seen a lot more. Iron Defense, Body Press is super obnoxious. Yeah, like I said, always prepare for this. But Ferrothorn, you know, does have some good offensive options here in Knockoff, Explosion, Gyro Ball, Power Whip. It still hits pretty dang hard. You generally don't want to even get hit by Ferrothorn because that Gyro Ball is just going to smack you really hard if you don't have a resisted mod. So, but yeah, 8.5. The reasons that I'd say this is 8.5, you don't have a really great defogger. The best one in here is Dragonite, and then you have Volcarona, both weak to rocks. Both want to set up. And then the other thing too is like you have a couple options to get in your Pokemon here. You have Flip Turn on Swampert, and you have Teleport on Porygon. It's just a matter of this speed tier. If you're not using, you know, it's weird because if you're using Trick Room, Dragonite's too fast. Volcarona's too fast. If you're not using Trick Room, you know, Mawile can't just click any attack. So it's a little bit, you know, trying to figure out what this team wants to do. It's like he's got half and half on both sides, not kind of leaning one side or the other. But if you're not using Trick Room, you have Jolteon and you have Infernape, who are in good speed tiers. Outside of that, you're really prone to being outsped by Scarfs. And the reason that I mention it like that is because Dragonite and Volcarona are going to be 9 times out of 10 running heavy duty boots, so you're very, very prone to being scarfed against to outspeed these Pokemon. That is why that's 8.5. I just feel like this offense, if it hasn't got rolling early, it can be stopped with good prep pretty fast. Like I just mentioned, you know, Choice Scarf is going to beat Dragonite, it's going to beat Volcarona. Obviously Dragonite has multi-scale, but if you're faster than Dragonite and you have Scarf, you're going to still outspeed a +1 Dragonite. So you could fire off 2 Ice Beams, and even then, you know, depending how strong your Pokemon is, Ice Beam might even be enough. Depending on the chip that you've got on Dragonite already, who knows? But yeah, that is why that is an 8.5 and not like a 10. There's holes in the offense is why, but it's still a great offense. 8.5 is a great score. So, but defensively we have 7.5 here. Now, defensively you have I'm gonna mention Dragonite here, Swampert, Porygon. I'm gonna mention Volcarona as well, and then Ferrothorn. So on this team, and any team like I mentioned earlier, it's very important to mix up your team, mix up your options, mix up your movesets, mix up what the roles are, because you don't do that, you become predictable and you can be easily handled, especially with good prep. So, but first on the list here we have Dragonite, really phenomenal defensive options. And having multi-scale makes it viable. Put heavy duty boots on, make sure he doesn't get knocked off. He's a really, really great defensive Pokemon. And he can really help the rest of your team. And I think that's really important on this team. You have Haze to deter those other offensive teams. You have Heal Bell, you have Defog, you have Screens, you have Roost, you have T-Wave, you have Toxic, you have Tailwind, and you have Trapping moves in Wrap and Whirlpool. So I think Dragonite is a really good defensive option. Personally, it was actually something that I used on the ladder a lot. Especially defensive Dragonite was really, really good with multi-scale, and then, you know, the EV spread that I had. It's just got great coverage too, so you can build it to how your team needs to be covered. You know, like I told you guys in the physical and special side, it's got coverage. So And then it's got a +2 priority move with great attacks. So like you could run defensive options, and then you could run extreme speed, or you could run a coverage move, whatever the case. But I think Dragonite is something that's kind of a cornerstone to this team if Jarrod can figure out how to mix up its sets, like I was mentioning. So, but then you have Swampert. Getting Flip Turn was huge for this Pokemon. It just makes him so good. He was good already. It's just he didn't have any. He didn't have a momentum move, and didn't mean he was bad. It just meant that he was not as good as some of the other defensive Pokemon that had Teleport and Use. But getting Flip Turn really helped him. So you have. You have Stealth Rock, Toxic, Yawn, Flip Turn. It's a typical strong defensive Pokemon. It's got good defense in both special and physical defense. You can run Stealth Rocks, and then you can run Toxic or Yawn depending on what you need to do. If it's a heavy offensive setup team, Yawn is really good. If it's a kind of a defensive or a balanced team, Toxic is really great. And then of course we have Porygon 2 here. This Pokemon is very crucial to breaking teams, or allowing Mega Mawile to break teams. Okay, Trick Room Teleport I think is extremely underutilized at this point. It's a free switch, unless the opponent double switches and guesses correctly. You're getting Mega Mawile in for free, and it can just click Play Rough and be first almost every time. Unless there's a Pokemon that's slower. Because its speed is 60, I think. But yeah, Trick Room Teleport absolutely busted with Mega Mawile. Busted. I mean, you get Trick Room Teleport, that should be basically game. If not, you should be taking down at least 2 Pokemon, and then Dragonite, Volcarona, Infernape, Jolteon, Crawdon, whoever your cleanup guy is, or whoever your next sweeper is, should be able to finish the job. Should be able to. Okay? But that's not all it's got. It's got Reliable Recovery and Recover. It's got Trick, if you're running like a Specs set, because Porygon 2 is totally viable to run Specs. Don't know how I missed mentioning it on the offensive side, but I did. It has Tri-Attack, Ice Beam, T-Bolt, Hidden Power, Psychic, or Psy Shock. And then it has Analytic and Download, allowing it to boost its special attack at base 105. That is really good, actually. So, being able to trick a Specs might be a good idea. It would definitely catch somebody off guard, and could allow you to break through some defensive options, or honestly shut down an offensive Pokemon. Right? A physically offensive Pokemon switches in to deal with Porygon. Because it knows what Porygon's moveset is already. You just trick a Choice Specs onto it, bam, it's fucked into 1 minute. And it doesn't even get its attack. So, but then we have Volcarona, Defog, Roost, U-Turn, Will-O-Wisp, Whirlwind. Now, Flame Body, I think defensive Volcarona, like I was mentioning, is something that's very similar to the defensive Talonflame, in a sense. Now, it doesn't get the priority that Talonflame had, but it gets Flame Body, Heavy Duty Boots is a thing, it gets U-Turn, and it has Quiver Dance. So you could basically run the same set that Talonflame would run, except with Quiver Dance instead of Bulk Up. So it would be Roost, Quiver Dance, Will-O-Wisp, and then either Flamethrower or Bug Buzz, depending on the match. Whatever one would be better in it, and not completely walled off. Like, these are things that you got to think about that are super good. You run a defensive Volcarona, and you have Will-O-Wisp, and you have Quiver Dance. You're shutting down a lot of options, and this is what you kind of want to do with this team. You want to corner the opponent to make a mistake, right? And then once they make a mistake, you want to go in there. You want to smell the blood. You want to see red, right? That's what you got to do. And I think when you do this, these type of mix-ups on this team, it makes you hard to prep for it. And when you look at this team, and let's say it's being brought the same way every single time, well, I mean, you prep for it accordingly, right? If he's okay, Dragonite's gonna set up, okay, Volcarona's gonna set up, you don't invite those Pokemon in, okay, you just keep chipping, you keep the momentum on your side of the field, and bam, you end up scooping a win, right? So Jolteon, I'll mention his defensive utility options. You could run them in the 4th move slot. Very, very risky. This Pokemon, you know, I think Gyro Ball from freaking Ferrothorn will obliterate Jolteon. Like, it's very poor defenses, so very hard to do this stuff with it. But it has T-Wave, Toxic, Yawn, Heal Bell, and a safer option that I thought of was Sing and Blunder Policy. So now, obviously, if you miss and you get the Blunder Policy and the person just attacks you, that's a different story. But if you miss, you get the Blunder Policy. You could potentially be running Electro Ball, and I think that would do a pretty high amount of damage because 394 times 2. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, or you can just get the Sing off, and then you could just free Volt Switch, right? So an interesting option for the Jolteon there. There's nothing for Groudon, obviously. There's nothing that I could mention that would be better than what its regular stuff is. Like, not even worth it to mention. But Ferrothorn, a really, really good glue to this team here. Unfortunately, sharing the same fighting weakness with Porygon, but having a Spikes, Rocks, T-Wave, and Toxic is really, really good for this team. Like I said, guys, the chip on this team is very important. The only thing that I would mention is this team, I don't know if it wants passive chip like that. I feel like the Jolteon and the Groudon chip would be more important. Just since I don't think Jarrod has all the tools to play that type of game around Stealth Rocks and Spikes, because Porygon and Ferrothorn both share the same weakness. You know, Swampert doesn't have reliable recovery, and that's 3 Pokemon taking up slots already. So if the other 3 Pokemon are Mawile, Dragonite, and Volcarona, now you gotta worry about Rocks. Your team has to worry about Rocks accumulation, so forgot to mention here, Ferrothorn has Leech Seed, so a super annoying option on it for some reliable recovery as well. So, but defensively 7.5. This team has no strong defogger or a Pokemon that really wants to defog. Like I said, Dragonite is a decent defogger and can be utilized like that. I think he should be utilized like that on this team. But it's not like, you know, a Tornadus Therian or Tyrian defog or a Corviknight defog. It's nothing like that. So it's, you know, this team really is not going to like when Rocks are up on the field, and he's got to verse a really strong defensive backbone team. Or a team that's just, you know, got high offense and can keep the pace up, and forcing Jarrod to switch. His team is really not going to like that. You know, Dragonite being weak to Rocks, Volcarona being ×4 weak to Rocks, Burnape no reliable recovery, Swampert no reliable recovery, Jolteon no reliable recovery, Groudon no reliable recovery. Really doesn't appreciate chip damage at all. So, and the defensive options on this team, I think, you know, Ferrothorn and Porygon, absolutely great. But I think the purpose, or the how do I say it? I think the winning trait for this team defensively is going to be Jarrod mixing up his offensive options as defensive Pokemon. I think that is going to be what's going to change the pace of his games and allow him to get out with these wins. So, and then we have speed at 7. Okay, so Jolteon and Infernape are carrying this 7 very hard right now. But he does have, you know, priority, and the priority is good. He's got a +2 priority, extreme speed. He's got Sucker Punch priority. He's got Mach Punch and Vacuum Wave, and he's got Aqua Jet. So he's got a lot of priority to make up for his, you know, his lackluster speed tier outside of Jolteon and Infernape here. But he also has Trick Room, okay? But like I mentioned with the Trick Room, it's a little bit tricky, because if he Trick Rooms and he doesn't get Mawile in, for whatever the reason is, or Mawile has to come out, basically the rest of his team except Groudon and Swampert are kind of like, you know, they're hindered by it, because they're going to be the slower of the two, and they're not going to be able to take advantage of the Trick Room. So, but the like I said, the speed tier is not as important. I didn't say this yet, but the speed tier is not as important on this team because there's so much priority. He has a phenomenal amount of priority. So, you know, if Jarrod can build and prep his team in that sort of way where, let's say he runs Trick Room and he makes sure he has priority on these Pokemon, I think this can be utilized really well. But overall, this is a 7. This is not going to be, you know, close to like whose team really high on speed. I think it was Phil's team had really good speed control with the Mega Septons, and he had webs as well. It's not going to be like that, right? And that's the type of team that this is going to struggle against. A team that's just faster. If Jarrod's not bringing Trick Room to that type of match, he's really heavily going to struggle with that sort of team. So, and then hazards, we have a 6.5 here. Now he has rocks on an abundant of Pokemon, which is great. Like I mentioned, when rocks are on multiple Pokemon, this frees up move slots, which is really good and very important in draft. But the problem is he doesn't have a Pokemon on his team who is the defogger. You know what I mean? Dragonite has wanted to be and has been the setup Pokemon in his matches thus far, and it's a phenomenal setup Pokemon. So running defog on it is kind of like, you know, why, right? And it's the same thing with Volcarona. Volcarona has good defensive options, but, you know, it's great as an offensive Pokemon and it's good as a sweeper, so why run defog? On top of it, Volcarona and Dragonite are both weak to rocks. They both don't like it, like really don't like it. Volcarona's times 4 weak to rocks, and Dragonite's multi-scale gets broken by rocks. So both these Pokemon really don't like rocks, and it puts a lot of pressure on this team. If they're running heavy duty boots and the opponent has knockoff, that is an extra thing that Jarrod has to worry about now. So not having a reliable defogger is what's like bringing this down heavily. I think Jarrod could definitely find a way to get a defogger on his team. He has so many offensive options on his team that I think he could afford to trade maybe one of them away and get a couple more options, and one of them being a defogger. So, but like I said, he has Stealth Rocks on Ferrothorn, he has Stealth Rocks on Swampert, Infernape, and Mawile. He also has Spikes on Ferrothorn as well. So that is a lot of Spikes, a lot of Rocks. You know, Rocks should almost be up every game that Jarrod goes into. He should be able to get Rocks up, no problem, between all of those Pokemon. And then last but not least, we have Momentum. Momentum 7, okay? So the momentum on this team, I had a hard time rating, okay? Because Dragonite comes in, it sets up Dragonance, and it still has multi-scale. That's a pretty heavy snowball. Volcarona comes in, sets up Quiver Dance. Generally, a couple Pokemon are going down. Mawile sets up Swords Dance. That's probably game. The thing is like, how is he getting in these Pokemon without somebody fainting, right? Teleport and Flip Turn are his best options to get these Pokemon in safely. But the problem is he's very much hindered by a team that's faster offensively, or it's got rocks on the field, and if Jarrod's not running heavy duty boots, this is gonna literally poop on his team. So a team that's faster, Jarrod's got to be able to take out these threats, and it's going to slow down his own momentum. The only thing that I could say about this is that Trick Room Teleport would be a phenomenal way to reverse that type of momentum on a team that's much faster than his. And in a game like that, you generally would want to be bringing Crowdon and Mawile to take advantage of that fast team and just flip it on them. You know, you think your team's fast? Well, okay, we'll not make it about the speed anymore. We'll make it about how slow you are, right? I think that's going to be his path to momentum, is, you know, flipping these fast teams on their backs and running Trick Room and utilizing this Crowdon and this Mega Mawile. And then, like I said, if you're running Trick Room, I mean, if you're running Trick Room, I don't really see the need to run offensive Dragonite and offensive Volcarona. You could bring more defensive option Pokemon like Ferrothorn and Swampert, or you could run Volcarona and Dragonite defensively and help out these other Pokemon, right? You know, if Crowdon and Mega Mawile are your win cons and Trick Room is your game plan, then you can afford to run Dragonite and or Volcarona defensively, and they're great defensive options. I mean, Flame Body, Will-O-Wisp, Quiver Dance, that's still a really good option. Like I said, like I'll say it 100 times if I had to say it 100 times. If you guys are playing Sun and Moon when Gale Wings was the way it was when it first came out, Bulk Up defensive Talonflame was so annoying to deal with because it had priority. It was good defensively because Fire Flying was good. It had setups so then it could sweep you. It had Will-O-Wisp to make sure that you weren't going to come in and Rock Slide it and kill it. It just, you know, the Will-O-Wisp, the Bulk Up to deal with the rock moves, it just... This Pokemon can do this same thing, and to some extent better, in my opinion, because it can boost its special defense and speed and special attack, whereas Talonflame boosts its defense. Yeah, it works in the way where Talonflame could boost its defense and Will-O-Wisp and then deal with the rocks better. But you hear me out, like the Volcarona is just an overall better Pokemon, so I think this is a super viable option on this. Overall, Jarrod's team, 36.5 here. I think this is a good score for his team. I think there are some improvements that he could make. Like I said, I think what this team needs is versatility in its movesets and, you know, prep and what he's bringing. Being, you know, Dragonite being a really fantastic defensive Pokemon or utility Pokemon on his team, especially with multi-scale. Volcarona can totally be utilized in the same fashion. And like I said, if you're, you know, versing a team that's just faster or better offensively at just attacking, you know, maybe Trick Room is your path to victory and you utilize Crowdon and Mawile, and then the rest of your team is a little bit more defensive and you focus on Chip, so that Mawile or Crowdon can come in and just click knockoff for Crabhammer or Play Rough or Sucker Punch or Iron Head, whatever the move be, and just clean up the rest of the team. You know, it's about being, you know, if you're versing a team that's faster, you know, patience, it will be a virtue. So, yeah, guys, sorry for my little hiatus here. I'm hoping to get back on track. I've got a couple days off for work here, and hopefully my hand will be a little bit better throughout these days. But yeah, we'll see you guys on the next one.